What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to an early morning in the BrewLab with me, Lone Fox. This morning in the BrewLab, I'm coming at you with the final little bit of the spoilers. Just in the nick of time, the set drops today. It's 11 a.m. right now where I am in Lisbon, Portugal, and I have a feeling it'll come out here something around 5 or 6 this evening. So only maybe about 5-6 hours left to go. Right, so I'm just going to pick up straight up where I left off. Yesterday night I arrived to the bereaved survivor. So today we are starting with the Hound Tamer. 3 mana for a 3/3 with trample. Straight away that's really good, I think. And it has a static ability, which means you don't need to tap it, you can keep paying this as much as you have mana to pay. So it's a pretty good mana sink, although it's quite expensive. For 4 you can put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. So it's cool, you can target itself and then do it, after blockers have been declared during combat, because it doesn't require tapping. You can do this at instant speed at any point. That's pretty nice. And the backside has Untamed Pup, 4/4 with trample, and gives all your other wolves and werewolves trample. Oh wow. Okay, this is definitely going in the werewolf deck. This is definitely going in the werewolf deck, where you're gonna trying to make it so that it's nighttime every time before you attack. There's so many cards where that's the case. The backside's way better for the attack phase. So suddenly they all get trample. That's game ending. That's incredibly good. That's definitely going in my werewolf deck. Wow. Okay, Hound Tamer, 3-drop for the werewolf deck. It'll be interesting to see how many of, because I think, let us just do a quick, here. Okay, Kessig Naturalist is a 2-drop, but there was a 3-drop, wasn't there? Yes, Tovalar. So it'll be interesting to see, how many. Hey, sweetie. The horse on your YouTube. He's learning animal sounds and can match them to the animal on the screen. Baby steps. But yeah, Tovalar is also a 3-drop, so it'll be interesting to see how many of each of those need to go in the deck. They might be vying for position. Well, they're definitely vying for position. Up, here I am. But yeah, that's a really good card. That's a really good card. Cathartic Pyre. 2 mana instant burn spell for red. Something to replace, Dragonfire in decks that don't play dragons. Like just a mono red aggro. I think this is really good. And it's definitely going to see a lot of play in those decks. The flexibility, draw 2 cards. So discard and then draw. So it's like Cathartic Reunion plus. That's why they've made it the name. So you can choose. And it's nice that you can target Planeswalkers as well. So pretty good card, I think. I think there's a bit of a burn deck sort of slowly evolving. There's a few cards in Boros and in mono red that make it seem like there's a pretty nice little red burn. What's that card? We're gonna get to it. There's like a dragon egg that unhatches into a 4/4 flying dragon that has do 1 damage to any target for every time you cast an instance of sorcery. I think there's a nice sort of either Prismari or just mono red burn deck emerging from the meta. It'll be interesting to see if it's tier 1 or whatever. Next up, Champion of the Perished. I've talked about this card already quite a bit on my various streams. I don't know now, having had the whole set spoiled to me, whether the zombie tribe is going to be as good as I hoped it would be when I initially saw this card, because it was one of the first cards spoiled. But it is a really good one drop for the zombie tribe, and we're going to be trying to build around it a lot in the early days of the meta, just to see if there's anything to it, whether the support cards are good for it. But yeah, I really like the design, and this tribe really needed a good one drop zombie, so I think pretty stoked to see Champion of the Perished. Next up, we have Vivisection, 4 mana, 3 and a blue. For a sorcery that has an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, draw 3 cards. Maybe like a 2 of in a zombie deck, because it's probably going to be Dimir. You can sacrifice one of those stupid little decayed zombies that you have lying around and have not much use for, to draw 3 cards and restock your hand and keep the game going. So I have a feeling it's going to feel quite similar to playing Rogues, not in what they're trying to do. It's not a mill deck like Rogues was, but in the sense that you'll have a lot of cheap, low to the ground tribe members to play early, and then you need counter magic and removal to do those tempo plays and keep your guys alive while chipping away for damage and countering their important big drops and stuff like that. So restocking your hand like the Rogues deck did with Into the Story is going to be really, really important, and it'll be interesting to see which is the better positioned. This one's sorcery speed, so probably not. There's a 4 mana rare that's coming up here in red that is probably going to be better. But the fact that this allows you to sacrifice one of the decayed zombies, have an extra reason to have, we'll get an extra little bit of value out of a decayed zombie to draw 3 cards. It's not bad. If it costs 3, it would be a lot better. Dual Craft Trainer, 4 mana, 3 and 1 white for a human soldier, 3/3 with first strike and Coven. Beginning of combat, if you have Coven, target creature you control against double strike. That's actually pretty good. Some sort of mono white aggro Coven deck, or maybe Selesnya. I like this card. I'm starting to come around to Coven. I think it will actually be easier to obtain than I think it is, because of the cards that come with it. There's all of them help make the Coven. There's very different strengths and toughnesses, power and toughnesses all along the curve in mono white now, in the Coven cards. So by turn 3 you can easily have Coven, and then there's instants and sorceries that either make 2 1/1 creature tokens, or put a counter on another creature, or so that you can always keep the different powers and to obtain Coven. So I think that's actually a pretty good card. Next up, we have Death Bonnet Sprout. This is a really good card, I think. I've seen it spoiled on other guys' channels. It's a 1-drop, 1 green mana for a fungus, and comes in as a 1/1. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you mill a card. Every upkeep. So in this sort of Reanimator, Golgari probably, or maybe weird Simic or Sultai self-mill. There's a few cards that you're really going to need to fill that graveyard up quickly, and I think that being on a 1-drop is really, really good, and it also has a great payoff. So when there are 3 or more creatures in your graveyard, you transform Death Bonnet Sprout, and it transforms into... My internet is really slow. Wow. My son's watching YouTube on the phone. Give me 1 second. when it transforms, it becomes the Death Bonnet Hulk. And it still has the same thing where you it changes. Okay, I like it when it does this. Like they're similar, but it's slightly differently worded. So at the beginning of your upkeep, instead of milling a card. Yes, sweetie. Are they dinosaurs? He's like every 2-year-old. He loves dinosaurs. If a creature card was exiled this way, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So, and it's from a graveyard. So it starts to become graveyard hate, and it can keep growing. But it's straight away a 3/3, which is great. And then, yes, sweetie. He's too funny at this age. Alright, next up, Obsessive Astronomer. 2 mana for a 2/2 human wizard, 1 and a red. It's neither night or day, it becomes day as Obsessive Astronomer enters the battlefield. Whenever day becomes night, or night becomes day, you discard up to 2 cards, and then you draw that many cards. Not bad. Not bad. Huh? I'm trying to record a video, sweetheart. Please, just watch your YouTube. I like that. That's a cool little like gel card for maybe that. There's better 2-drops though, but in the spellcaster deck, putting all I don't know. It seems pretty good. There's some synergy with the blue guy over here. Where was it? Oh no! It's a rare. Sorry, it's coming up. There's some good synergy between this. Oh no, sorry, it was a multicolor one. It's the Is It guy. Here, sort of a night and day Prismari spells deck. This guy gets bigger every turn. It makes your spells cost less the bigger he gets. And you're drawing cards and putting things in graveyards with this guy. I think, and like then there's this spell here to sort of finish it off. I think it's really looking pretty good. I'm excited to play a sort of Prismari spells deck. There hasn't been like the dragons have sort of taken over that color, and it still kind of is a spells deck, but it's mostly a dragon deck. Alright, Jadar Ghoul, Caller of Nephalia. 2 mana, 1/1 human wizard at rare, our first proper rare that we haven't seen yet after Champion of the Perished. At the beginning of your end step, if you control no creatures with Decayed, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. If only it was a wizard. It wasn't a wizard. If only it was a zombie itself to fit the tribe. But I guess it doesn't really matter. But it would be a really good 2-drop if it was a zombie as well, to go Champion of the Perished into Jadar. You don't have any zombies with Decayed, so it makes a zombie at your next end step. So you're already putting 2 counters on the Champion of the Perished on turn 2, and adding 3 power to the battlefield, and 2 bodies. So that would have been a lot nicer. But at the moment, in my zombie deck, instead of running Jadar, I'm running the adversary, the Tainted Adversary instead, in the 2-drop slot. It's just better. Next up, we have Triska Descafile. This was spoiled quite a while back by Watsy. You have no maximum hand size. 2 mana for a 1/3 human wizard that you can pay 4 and draw a card. That's really good. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. So, probably very hard to obtain, but it's like a win con that's stapled onto a card that's a decent blocker, costs very little, and can draw you cards. I think that's actually really, really good. I still don't know in which deck. It's probably going to be, it might be, fitting in with this whole thing here. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see if somebody like solves this one quickly, finds the easiest and quickest ways to always get to 13 cards in your hand exactly, like in a reliable way, without having to just fill the deck with nonsense. Okay, next up, Cathar's Call. Another aura. There's lots of auras. 3 mana, 2 and a white, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has vigilance, and at the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 white human creature token. I kinda actually really like that. There's another card that does that in white, which we'll get to. I think it's this one, Adaline. Yeah, where every time you attack, you create a 1/1 human creature token. So if you put Cathar's Call, of course, on Adaline or on something else, you can be making 2 of those human white creature tokens per turn, which can trigger, enter the battlefield effects and all kinds of other stuff. So I like that a lot, actually. Something different from mono white would be interesting, like a soldier's deck, a human's deck, not just life gain and weenies. Something a little bit more mid-rangey out of mono white would be fun for me to play. Probably won't be very very good, but I miss that sort of mono white. We had it when before the last rotation there was mono white decks that were a little bit more like just playing control, mono white control, or mono white mid-range. I liked it. Hope we can get some of that happening again. Okay, next up we have one of my favorite cards from the set. I think this is going to be really, really cool. I'm still I haven't had enough time to think about how I would build the deck around this card, but the first thing that obviously comes to mind is Finn, because it reads, okay, well, first of all, it's a 4 mana, 2 colorless and 2 green human warlock, legendary creature, and it says that all your other type creatures have death touch. So that having that problem of filling the Finn deck with death touch creatures that are rubbish, you can put in some really good creatures that don't have death touch, and they'll get death touch by having Sareth in play. And the good thing is, because it doesn't end there, this card's insane. Other untapped creatures you control have hexproof, so you can just leave your Finn untapped, and your opponent is now going to struggle much more to get rid of it. It used to be pretty easy. It's a small little 2-drop 1/3. You can kill it with most of the removal in standard. If it has hexproof, they have to use a sweeper. That suddenly makes it much harder to get rid of and much easier for you to get to the 10 poison counters or whatever that you need. And the fact that you can pay 1 to untap another creature or land you control is pretty good. Unfortunately, you have to tap Sareth, so unfortunately she's other, so none of this happens to Sareth herself, which is the problem, clearly, because then they just remove Sareth and then you lose that effect. But she's a 3/4. Be probably you'll have to just play a bunch of Snakeskin's Veils to protect her instead of having to protect Finn. But that's kind of clunky. That's a lot of stuff that you need to make the deck work. So it might just be better, and I'm still not entirely sure, but I just think it's really powerful. It gives your entire team hexproof and everyone that attacks death touch on a 3/4 body for 4 mana. I think that's a really good card. We'll have to see how it ends up. Next up, Light Up the Night. I think this is the finisher in the spells deck I was talking about earlier. This is ridiculously good. We've been waiting, every set has an X red card, and they do it differently every time. AFR had 8 damage meteor swarm or something, and you can X is however many times you can split that 8 damage up amongst the different targets, as many as you want. Then we had Crackle with Power from dear God, from Strixhaven. There's always one. There was Perferberos Intervention. There's always this X red damage spell. But there's always a little bit of a caveat. This one is just phenomenal, okay? Light Up the Night deals X damage to any target. You can go for face, and it deals X plus 1 damage instead if the target is a creature or planeswalker. Okay, so you can pump in however much mana you want into this thing and just go for face. Even in a little goblins deck, any sort of aggro deck that's like just kind of almost made it through, and your opponent's like, okay, sweet, now I'm going to stabilize the board, I'm okay. Boom, Light Up the Night, do the last 5 damage to the face, like easy. And you can flash it back and remove X loyalty counters from among a planeswalker you control. I could see this going in the Rowan deck, because X loyalty counters from among planeswalkers you control. If you cast a spell this way, X can't be 0. So I still don't quite get this. So then can you still, from amongst planeswalkers you control, if you cast the spell this way, so does the X become loyalty and not mana when you flash it back? Then I'm a little bit less hot on it. If it's that you just need to remove a loyalty counter off a planeswalker so that you can cast it for the normal X's X's damage. You can pay mana for the X. Sorry. Then I think it's much better. I'll have to see how that ends up working out. Okay, here's our first curse. Curse of Leeches. 3 mana for an aura curse, 2 and a black. Enchant player. So curses enchants players. I've never played with curses. It's going to be new for me, and that's super exciting. As this permanent transforms into curse of leeches, attach it to a player. Okay. Well, it is a day-bound, night-bound thing, so if it's night already and you cast it, it comes into play as Leeching Lurker, which is a 4/4 lifelink. And then as soon as it switches to day, you attach it to a player. They lose 1 life and gain 1 life. That's pretty cool. That is really cool. I really, really like that card. It just took me a while to figure out the play pattern. So if you play it at day, you enchant him. It switches to night. It becomes the lurker in your battlefield. Then you get to attack in with it, gain 4 life. Boom. Then it switches to day. It goes back to the player, and on their upkeep, because it'll trigger at the same time as the day and night thing, they lose 1 life, you gain 1 life. So they lost 5, you gained 5 in that little interaction. That's really, really nice. Shh. He loves trains. Bye-bye. Vincent, please, my darling, I'm recording. Please. Please. Next up, Sludge Monster. Let me see this. Let me see this train. Is there a cow on the train? Yeah. This is the downside of not having editing software. I'm gonna, when we move to South Africa, Vincent, please. When we move to South Africa in October, I'm gonna have him at kindergarten school. So I have like 5 extra hours of time during the day, and I'm gonna learn how to edit, and then I can edit out 2-year-old squealing in the background in the future. So please bear with me in this sort of early stages of the channel and my nomadic lifestyle for the moment. So next up, Sludge Monster. 5 mana for a 5/5. 3 and 2 blue. It's a horror. Nice. I like that tribe. Whenever Sludge Monster when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a slime counter on up to 1 target creature. Vincent, please leave the volume down. Do you understand? Non-horror creatures with slime counters on them lose all abilities and have base and power and toughness of 2. I don't understand how that works. Whenever a sludge monster enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a slime counter on up to one other target creature. Sorry guys, I'm so sorry. Whenever Sludge Monster enters the battlefield or attacks, you put a slime counter on up to one other target creature. So you put it on the opponent's creatures. So the non-horror creatures with slime counters on them lose all abilities and have power and toughness 2/2. That's pretty damn good. You put it on their creatures, they become 2/2s that lose all their abilities, and then they might want to block at that point because you're coming in there with a 5/5, and then they just lose their creature, and you don't lose your 5/5. That is epic. I like that card. It's a little bit. I wonder in which deck it will belong. Probably like sideboard for a control deck if you like bring it in against the creature deck. That's pretty sweet. I'm gonna test that for sure today. Alright, next up, Brutal Cathar. We're almost there. Is there a dog in the video now, Vincent? Bow bow. Brutal Cathar. Human soldier werewolf. So cool that there's a werewolf in white as well. I thought it was gonna just be, mostly red and green. When this creature enters the battlefield or transforms into Brutal Cathar, exile target creature and opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. Wow. So every time they play a creature on their turn, you switch it back and forth from night to day. You exile another creature. And then, okay, of course, if they have removal, they just get rid of Brutal Cathar. All the creatures come back. But still, pretty cool. Let's see what the backside does. Moon Rage. Okay, so it's on a Boros. It's a Boros card. The backside is a 3/3 with first strike that has ward, pay 3 life. Wow. Okay, I'm actually super hyped about this card. I wonder if they're like a Naya werewolves or like just doesn't have to be tribal, can just be in a Lorehold or Boros aggro deck. I like that. I like this really much. Brutal Cathar, I have to remember about that one. Okay, Unnatural Growth. This is crazy. Like mono green, like Stompy top end. Once you've already played out all your creatures, you play this thing. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. You just make sure you have like a bunch of creatures with trample. You put down all your creatures with trample. There's already some really good ones in every like point on the curve, and then you just like swing in for a buttload of damage on turn. What's this? Cost 5. Turn 5, you swing in with everybody, and they've all got trample, and your opponent's barely gotten any defenders up. It's gonna be insane. He's trying to tug me down. Ah. Watch what I'm doing. Okay, now watch it. Watch YouTube right over here. Next up we have Geist Flame Reservoir. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you put a charge counter on it. Then you pay 2, tap it, remove any number of charge counters from it, and it deals damage to any target. Or you can pay 2 and tap it and exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. Telling you, spells decks, it's gonna make a comeback. There's a lot of support. Like this fits with this, with this, with this. with the egg that we're going to come to in a second. I think, yeah, here, the smoldering egg. There's going to be a sweet, probably mono red burn deck that is going to, and includes this. Yeah, like, there we go. I mean, boom, 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 boom. Whenever an enchanted player casts a spell, here's another curse. Oh goodness, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have another dual-faced card here, Graveyard Trespasser. 3 mana for a human werewolf, 3/3 with ward, discard a card. Same ward as the Westgate Regent. 3 mana for a 3/3 is good. Ward is good. And when it ETBs or attacks, you can exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. Sick. Really sick. This is going to be really, really good, I think. Graveyard hate is going to be very important. And it does that on ETB and on attacking. And if a creature card was exiled this way, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I don't know what's on the backside of this thing. The Graveyard Glutton. Creature werewolf. Discard, same ward. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to 2 cards from graveyards. For each creature card exiled this way, each opponent loses. Wow. So it just doubles up. It's exile up to 2 instead of exile up to 1, and it becomes a 4/4 instead of a 3/3. That's a really nice card as well. I like that super muchly. Werewolf deck. All sorts of different ways it can go. Doesn't just have to be an aggro deck. I like it. There's so much brewing to do today. I just keep checking my clock. 11:30. Okay. I think the best way to check is you go into the store and you look at when the offers refresh. So mine's saying 5 hours 34 minutes. I think that's the way to see when the set drops, but I could be wrong. Don't take my word for it. Next up, Patrician Geist. 3 mana for a Spirit Knight, 2 and a blue. 2/2 with flying. Oh, this is the Spirit. I was talking about this in last night's videos. This is the Spirit Lord. So all the cards that you disturb, all of them, come back as spirits. So having this, I don't know, I'm starting to think that a spirit tribal deck doesn't necessarily have to mean that all your cards are spirit if they have disturb, because they can come down as something else, and then they usually get their most value once you cast them for their disturb cost from their graveyard. And if you just don't even cast them in the first place and just mill them into your own graveyard with cards that we've already seen doing that, and then casting them from your graveyard costs 1 less to do because of having Patrician Geist in play, and when they come back, when you cast them for the disturb cost, they'll get +1/+1 when they ETB. And you can have multiple Patrician Geists on the battlefield because they're not legendary, so you can buff them more and more and more. And yeah, cost cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to cast your disturbed cards. I think that's could be a deck. I haven't really looked at the spirits yet, but that's the other tribe. That's it's humans, zombies, werewolves, vampires, and spirits. Those are the main tribes from Innistrad. So there's got to be a spirit deck lurking somewhere in the deck. Next up, we have another curse, the White Curse, Curse of Silence. For 1 mana, you enchant a player. As Curse of Silence enters the battlefield, you choose a card name. Spells with the chosen name enchanted player cast cost 2 more to cast. That's actually pretty cool. Whenever enchanted player casts a spell with the chosen name, you may sacrifice Curse of Silence. If you do, draw a card. That is really cool. So it's got like built-in sort of fail-safe or whatever. You like, you could probably certain that a deck, you can tell if you're playing the meta a lot. I can, at least at this point, tell what sort of deck the opponent's playing just by seeing the sort of first two drops. First land, first player, you're like, okay, this is Prismatic Dragons or whatever. So then you can already think ahead and be like, okay, what's the most annoying card that he could have on curve that's going to disrupt my plan? And then you just play Curse of Silence like on turn 2, turn 1, turn 2, and name. And this is especially good in like a, best of 3. Then you know exactly what your opponent has. That taxes, the Doomscar. The sweeper suddenly costs 2 more. Dinosauro. Dinosaur. Dinosaur. T-Rex. And then, when they do eventually get to the mana to cast it... I know, Vincent. I know. It's a dinosaur. Then you get to sacrifice Curse of Silence. And you draw... Vincent, I'm busy. I get it. It's a dinosaur. I'm going to buy you a dinosaur today. How's that? You should practice more on your growling. Go like this. And you get to draw a card. So that's pretty cool. Sorry, guys. Augur of Autumn. 3 mana for a human druid. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands off the top. And then if you reach Coven, you can play creatures off the top as well. And it's not legendary. Human druid, 2/3, 3-drop. I think this is a really good card. It kind of gives you this, in conjunction with druid class. Ranger class. I think it could be really good. And druid class. Any landfall deck. Oh my goodness. I'm really looking forward to the shenanigans I can do with this card. Next up, the Red Curse, 2 mana. Curse of the Shaken Faith. Enchant player. Whenever enchanted player casts a spell other than the first spell they cast each turn, or copies a spell. Okay, cool. That like they slid that in there because of all the copying spells from Strixhaven. Curse of the Shaken Faith deals 2 damage to them. Wow, that's pretty good. That's a shark, not a crocodile. That's not a dinosaur. Mask of Grizzlebrand. This is really good, and I was talking about this yesterday night, and I was talking about it when we were looking at this card, Necrosynthesis. It's just a better Necrosynthesis because it, whenever another creature dies, Ignore the first part. The second part here. Look at how he grabs my chin. That's a shark. It's a shark. The second part here that says that whenever an enchanted creature dies, you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is its power. You put one of those cards into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Mama, to the rescue. Next up, we have so this also, when the thing that it's attached to dies, you may pay X life, where X is its power, and then if you do, you draw X cards. It's just, I don't know, they're similar. I hope you understand what I mean. And this is pretty good. This is pretty good. In a mono black like aggro deck, you put this on, your 5/3 Goblin Warlock or whatever. What was it called? There's the new one that can only be cast if a creature died this turn. Would be a great target for this. Grim Wanderer, 5/3 Goblin Warlock. I was right. You pop this on there, okay? Now it becomes, a 5/3 with flying and lifelink. But then if they kill it, which they're highly incentivized to do, you can pay the life that you just gained from attacking with it, let's say. And if you do, you draw 5 cards. And then you can just re-equip it to another creature next turn and start gaining that life again. So I think it's pretty good. It'll be interesting to see which deck this ends up in, but I think it will end up in a deck for sure. Grafted Identity. 4 mana, 2 colorless, 2 blue for an enchantment aura. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Enchanted creature, you control enchanted creature. Enchanted creature get +1/+1. Okay, cool. So it's one of those. We've had a few of these in standard of late, where you enchant the opponent's creature and you gain control of it. And all you have to do in this case to do it. It's actually a higher cost than the other ones. The other ones were all cost at 4 as well, but you didn't have this extra, like you need to sacrifice one of your creatures, but you could just sacrifice, a zombie with Decayed or a little 1/1 creature token or whatever the hell, and then you can grab your opponent's best creature and grow it. That's pretty cool. Wow. Next up, we have Vanquish the Horde. This I've seen a lot of talk about. This is a really good sweeper, I think. Okay, it seems expensive, 6, 7, 8 mana starting cost, but it costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. So, your aggro opponent, mono white weenies, goes wide on you, even if they have 4 creatures on the battlefield, suddenly this costs 4 instead of 8. If you've even got a few creatures on your side, but there's just less of yours than his, and you're worried about the next turn attack phase, you're gonna not have enough blockers, he's gonna get through for that. You don't mind. You often sweep your own creatures when you play sweepers. Suddenly this can cost as little as 2 to destroy all creatures. I think that's really good. Probably not replacing Doomscar in a white deck, but maybe just a 2 of, and probably in some maybe some control decks. But the fact that it's got 2 white makes it a little bit less playable in dual colored decks. It's probably could be done in Orzhov. It's not too hard to get 2 of a different color. We'll have to see, but I like it. I really like it. And it's increasing the count of sweepers in the format, because which might steer people away a little bit from Blood on the Snow, which is driving me insane. But I don't see that happening. It's so good. Briar Bridge Tracker. Human Scout, 3 mana for a 2/3 with Vigilance. When it ETBs, you investigate. So investigate means that you create a colorless clue artifact token with pay 2, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. As long as you control a token, so that token that it makes when it ETBs counts towards that. As long as you control a token, it gets +2/+0. So it becomes a 4/3 for 3 with Vigilance. Horses. Show mama. Go. Falcon Wrath Pit Fighter. I really like this card. It's in my vampire deck already. It doesn't even have to only go, exclusively in a purely vampire deck. But the main thing you want from it is discard a card, sacrifice a vampire, draw 2 cards, activate only if an opponent lost life this turn. Yeah, I mean it's gonna go in a vampire deck. It's in my vampire deck. I'm gonna do a video on that right after this one. Falcon Wrath Pit Fighter, 1 mana for a 2/1, and I've already read the ability. Vampire Warrior. I like it that it's a warrior. I'm trying to make a deck that tops out with Zagras. So we've already got a few vampire clerics, we've got a few vampire warriors, and we've got a few vampire rogues. There's no vampire wizards, but that doesn't matter with Zagras. You just want to reduce the cost a little bit. So if you can play Zagras on turn 4, turn 5, because you've got a warrior and a cleric in play, that's is really, really cool. But yeah, Falcon Wrath Pit Fighter and Slaughter Specialist, both I think definitely going in every single vampire deck. Slaughter Specialist, 2 mana for a 3/3. Just that alone is incredible. And when it ETBs, it creates a 1/1 in the opponent's battlefield. Okay, human creature token. But that doesn't matter, because you're going to be attacking with your other stuff after you drop this, and they're going to have to block. They're going to use that human for blocking. That's the whole point. Why they're giving you a thing. Like, what if your opponent doesn't even have creatures? So then, you can never, because the second part of Slaughter Specialist says that whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on Slaughter Specialist. So if he has no creatures control deck, it's never going to grow. So this even gives you the ability to do that. The opponent's going to get this little 1/1. He's not just going to not block with it if you're coming at him with a 3/3. Yeah, he'll block with it, and then that's going to grow your Slaughter Specialist. Next turn you can come in for 4/4 and then keep growing it. And then in a matchup where the opponent has lots of creatures, you can just remove it with because it's only a 1/1. There's that card we already talked about, which I think is going to be really good in this deck, the Neonate's Rush. You can do 1 damage to target creature and 1 damage to controller, draw cards. You do 1 damage to the creature, it's gone. You grow the Slaughter Specialist. It also activates all of the things where it says, activate only if an opponent lost life this turn. All the vampires have that, if the opponent lost life this turn thing. So then you can attack in. And I think, I'm really excited for the vampire deck. And it's only going to get better when the, Crimson Vow drops in November, because that's going to have all the good vampires, and probably the good vampire planeswalkers going to come out then. So really amped for vampires. They excite me more in terms of play style than werewolves, but we'll have to see. Alright, next up we have the Blue Curse. It's the most expensive one so far. 5 mana, 4 colorless, 1 blue. Enchant player. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, any number of target players other than that player each draw cards equal to the player. Okay, in Commander, that's why they had to word this stuff like this. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, any number of target players, so you choose, or no, okay, so the player that's enchanted, so you curse yourself. No, he's cursed, he has to target you, and then I get to draw cards equal to the number of curses attached to him. Curse deck. 5-color curse deck. Woo, let's do it. I think I saw Hello Good Games already got a 4-color one. It'd be interesting to go and snipe that list and modify it a little bit. Curse deck. Cool. So far they're all really good. I like them. Even if you're not playing a full curse deck and you just have one of them in your deck that works with the rest of your strategy, it's really good. They're really good. Next up, Adaline. Okay, so we couldn't really read it properly before because it's in Italian. Catara. Splendente. Creatura leggendaria. Cavaliere umano. Cautela. La forza di... E pari al numero di creature che controlli. Man, I couldn't... I've never played Magic in Italian. Even though I am Italian, I would lose my mind. I can't understand what's going on just from reading it. Ogni qualvolta, ogni qualvolta attacchi, for every creature, so every time you attack, for every adversary you have, you create a creature token, human 1/1 tapped, that attacks that player or planeswalker. Okay, so whoever Adaline's attacking, the planeswalker or the player, it's gonna create a 1/1, and because its power, Adaline's power, is equal, because it's got star here, it's equal to the number of creatures you control. It's gonna grow every time you attack because it creates a 1/1. And then if you have this aura, Cathar's Call, on Adaline, that's going to make another 1/1 on your end step, so it's going to grow by 2 power every turn in that way, and your battlefield keeps growing. I think that's really good. I like that. Next up, Willowgeist. This is a good one, I think. I've seen a lot of hype around this card. It's a 1-drop 1/1, okay, but it's got trample. Talking about that unnatural growth. like putting this in your natural growth deck. And whenever one or more creatures leave your graveyard, you put a +1/+1 counter on Willowgeist. Okay. And when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. Interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how we're going to get to grow this quickly. I was scrolling down there because I was thinking about the Death Bonnet. Once it transforms. Interesting. Interesting. So much to do. Next up, Reckless Stormseeker. I think this is the most important card. I'm going to stake my reputation on this in the Werewolf deck. And I'll explain why in a moment. But there's so many werewolves that want to come in and attack straight away. And this allows them to do so. Okay. On a decent body that costs, that's on curve, Reckless Stormseeker is a 2/3 for 3. 2 colorless and 1 red. And at the beginning of combat, on your turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1/+1/+0 and gains haste. Okay? So if you don't have on the turn it comes in, turn 3, you can give it haste and it becomes a 3/3 with haste. The following turn it's nighttime. You play your big 4-drop werewolf guy that you want to get attacking with straight away. That's a banana box. A useless item. And it would usually have Summoning Sickness. By that point, Reckless Stormseeker has flipped sides. Where's my phone? Here, okay. And the backside becomes... Vincent, it's a banana box. It's a banana box. Where's the other side? Here it is. Gosh, my internet is laggy. Stormed Charged Slasher. Feels like 56k modem. Where is my freaking phone? Be right back. There we go. It becomes a 3/4, and it gives a creature that it gives haste to +2/+0 instead of +1/+0. So turn 3 you play this, you attack with the Stormseeker. Turn 4 you play your 4-drop good werewolf or whatever, even a good 3-drop that there's plenty of. We just talked about that earlier, and give it haste, and then swing in with the whole squad. It's gonna be the gel between turn 3 and turn 5 that just makes it really explosive. You give haste to where was he? The black one that we looked at, Graveyard Trespasser, swings in for 4 straight away, and exiles 2 cards from the opponent's graveyard. You gain 1 life, your opponent loses 1 life, and you hit in for 4 damage. Or your Tovolar. Where is he? Tovolar. At that point, you're hoping it's nighttime, or if it isn't, you can make it so by casting where is it? Unnatural Moonrise, and you also give another +1/+0 and trample to, let's say, Tovolar as well, and then its backside. Man, it's gonna be super duper explosive. Can't wait to play it. To see, because I have a feeling that Werewolves is going to be, at least in the first couple of weeks of the format, before people figure out how to play against it, it's going to be so powerful and quick. Turn 5 GG like every time and reliably with like good card draw and everything. It's crazy. Anyway, bloodline culling. This is a really good card. It costs the same as Poison the Cup as all your other like a 3 mana instant speed removal from black, like Murder, you name it. There's been so many. This one can get rid of indestructible creatures, and it has a sweeper effect on tokens, which is, I think, really good, because there's a play line that's springing up. People have been talking about it all over the place, where on turn 4 you play your Seeker's Chariot. It makes 2/2/2 little cat tokens. And then turn 5 you play Ren and 7. You -3, you create a green treefolk creature token with reach. And because it'll be a 5/5, you can crew your Seeker's Chariot with the token from Ren and 7, attack with your chariot and the 2 cats, and also make another copy of the treefolk. Suddenly you have 2 5/5s with reach, and 2 2/2s and your Seeker's Chariot. It's like that's going to be a really powerful play pattern, and being able to get rid of those 2/2s straight away is pretty nice. And then there's plenty of other tokens, like it's basically a token sweeper. Even just the wolves, all the wolves that get created by the various ranger class, and all the werewolf guys that make wolves when they ETB, you can wipe them all out for 3 mana at instant speed. And then you can also get rid of a Goldspan Dragon, or even a Velomachus Lorehold. You can do -5/-5, or you can get rid of a Toski with this thing. So I really like it. I don't think it'll see a 4 of play in any deck, but like probably 2 or 3 of, to support like some of your other removal pieces. I really like it. Bloodline culling. Next up, Suspicious Stowaway. This is probably one of the most hyped cards right now. Everybody's talking about this one, and I can see why. Suspicious Stowaway is a 2 mana for a 1/1. 1 and a blue for a human rogue werewolf. Suspicious Stowaway can't be blocked. So it's kind of like in AFR we had that Yuan T Malison, where it can't be blocked, and you can consistently get in for small little bit of damage every turn. And every time it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, but then you discard a card. And now if my internet would just load the other side of this blooming web page. No? Not gonna happen? My gosh. Why is my internet so bad in this apartment? It's supposed to be really good. Okay, well basically the other side is a green werewolf that, there we go, seafaring werewolf. A 2/1 that can't be blocked, and then you don't have to discard the card. You just draw a card every time it attacks. Can't be blocked, you deal the damage, and you draw a card. That's so good. That's so good. And makes me think that maybe some kind of like teamer werewolves list can be obtained. Like that doesn't just go for like aggro, boom, 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 but like some sort of different other game plan, which I'm really hoping to, brew up and find out and discover later today. Next up, Sungold Sentinel. 2 mana for a 3/2. So good. Can trade with the Night Pack Ambusher or whatever from AFR. That's going to be in all the werewolf decks on the same point on the curve. And when it ETBs or attacks, you can exile up to 1 target card from graveyard. And it has Coven. You can give it hexproof by paying 2 mana, 1 and a white. If you have Coven, you can gain hexproof from that color until end of turn. So you choose a color. Don't break these, or ooh, the owner of the house will not be happy. Super nice though. Boom, boom. Don't break. Next up, Storm the Festival. I don't know, man. Some people are hype, some people aren't so hype. I think it may be just a 2 of, like, and hope maybe. I don't think you build your deck around this card. It, first of all, can probably only be played in green deck. Maybe in some sort of semi-ramp deck, but probably mono green is the only place that this is seeing any play. And you can look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you may put up to 2 permanent cards with mana value 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. My problem with this is that you need to have, like, for it to be, good, you can't put other permanents because it's 5 or less. So, but you want to get only ones with 5, because those are usually better than permanents with less mana value. So if you have too many like 2 and 3 drops, then whenever you play this card, it's just going to hit those, and you're just going to get, like, ooh, a mana dork and some other stupid card that you don't need onto the battlefield, and you paid like 5 mana for that. So then you can't play those cards. You're going to have to ramp to this without having mana dorks and creatures, which is using ramp spells, and then fill your deck with good 5 drops so that you always hit when you play Storm the Festival. But that's not a good play pattern. Like, I don't know. I don't see it. Maybe just like a 2 of that you top deck in the late game, and then you might, like, ooh, you get the, you'll bomb out the deck, but otherwise I don't really see it. But I could be completely wrong. Other people are raving about this card. Let's see. It has flashback, gets even more expensive. I don't know. I don't like it. Next up, we have a new sweeper for red, which is really good. Burn down the house. 5 mana for 5 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. But you can also create 3 devil creatures. I'm starting to... oh, no. No. Just stop it. Look at this. You broke it. No. My goodness. 2-year-olds just break things, like, without even knowing they're doing it. It's terrible. There's a devil deck where you keep this in your hand, and you play, like, Zerial and all the other little devils that you have. Keep playing them, trying to do your plan with that, and kill the opponent that way. If it seems like you're not going to be able to, but you've gotten them down close to the end, the first few times you cast this spell, maybe you pick the 3 red devils. You now have this little army of devils that all, when they die, do 1 damage to any target. And then at some point you just burn down the house. Kill your own planeswalker, doesn't matter. Or maybe you've already gotten the emblem off, and then you burn down the house. You attack first, and then burn down the house in your second main phase. And whatever didn't get through, they all die anyway, and then you ping the opponent down to 0. I'm going to definitely try that. So keep your eyes on the channel for Devils, Zerial, Burn Down the House deck. I think there's something to it there. Like, the other little devils that we came across, like, to get us between here and there. It was this guy with Menace, and this guy, Festival Crasher. Maybe it's a total load of rubbish, but it'll be interesting to see if there's something to that little devil tribal with some spells and Zerial and Burn Down the House as your sweeper. Next up we have Giza. This card is insane. 4 mana for a 4/4, 2 colorless and 2 black for a legendary creature human wizard. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So it's like your Valentine, Dean of the Vein. It's like the Drog Necromancer. Please, Vincent, can you go play with those elsewhere? FML. Please, Vincent, can you go play with Mommy over there? Just... I'm almost done. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Giza, Glorious Resurrector onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. Okay, like how crazy is that? You do like the same thing that you would do with the Draug Necromancer. You have Blood on the Snow. Or like there's a few other cards like that could work with that. We've already looked at one. It was a common that it gives a human you control +3/+3 and indestructible. But you can also do it with Feign Death, or you could do it with Blood on the Snow. You sweep the field and you bring back Giza from the graveyard. All your opponent's cards got you put all creatures cards exiled with Giza, but you don't exile it with Giza. Oh, yeah, exactly. So you Blood on the Snow. Okay, you have Giza in play. You bring Giza back, but it was in play when you Blood on the Snow. So all your opponent's creatures gets exiled instead, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, the next turn, all your opponent's cards come back to your battlefield. They have Decayed, okay? So they can't block, and when they do end up attacking, you have to sacrifice them at the end of combat. So you're going to have to wait until the following turn, but that's pretty damn cool. I really like Giza, and it's a little bit like less obnoxious than Tergrid, but it'll probably end up playing in a deck with Tergrid and Professor Onyx. I can't wait to try it out. The shenanigans look pretty interesting, so keep your eyes peeled for Giza, the Glorious Resurrector. Next up, we have the best 4-mana draw spell that we have seen in a very, very, very long time. Memory Deluge is what CGB has been waiting for all this time. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast a spell. So you spend 4 mana to cast it the first time. You can look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you can put 2 of them into your hand and the rest onto the bottom of your library in random order. But then it can be flashed back for 7, which means you're then looking at the top 7 card of your library and putting 2 of them into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Whew! At instant speed. It's not busted. It's not like, woo, ban it at all. It's just a really, really good draw spell. At instant speed, you can do it on, your opponent end step. Look at the top 4 cards of your library and put the best 2 into your hand, and then you still get to draw again on your draw step. Untap with 3 new cards, and 2 of them are the best 2 cards out of the top 4 cards of your library. And it can be flashback, and then you can do the top 7 cards. That's really, really good. Really, really, really good. I can't stress that enough. You'll be seeing this in every single Dimir control deck. You'll be seeing this in every single ramp deck. It's better than Eureka Moment. It's better than the red one that makes 2 treasures that we just got. I think it's just going to be a house. And that's why it's rare, and the others were all uncommon as well. Next up, we have Sigarda's Splendor. This is such a cool card. Again, like mid-rangey mono white, not just weenies all the time. 4 mana, 2 colorless and 2 white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you note your life total. What's that, a zebra? Take it. You take it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card. If your life total is greater than or equal to the last noted life total for Sigarda's Splendor, then note your life total again. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 1 life. Okay, does that make sense? So you note your life totals. So it's cool that it's not like required to be like some of the other white cards that are similar to this, where you have to have 27 and above, and then the thing happens, like Valkyrie, Righteous Valkyrie, for example. This is like you note it at whatever point it is at that point in time. So say you're at 20 for the sake of the example. Then at your beginning of our upkeep, if you've managed to get to 21, you draw a card because it was greater than your previous last life total. And then you still draw another card off of your draw step. So you get to draw 2 cards every turn, as long as you've gained at least 1 life more than you did the turn before. And then when you can easily gain that life, because whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 1 life. And it's not legendary. You can have multiple of these on the battlefield. I think this is really, really good. I think this is really, 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 really good. I can't wait to play this in my mono white deck. Next up, Tovolar's Huntmaster. This card is insane. It's a house. It's just ridiculous. Like, ramping into this is going to be the whole point of the Werewolf deck. Like, you won't run 4 copies. You'll run 2 at the most. And if you haven't been able to kill them already with your aggro plan, you top deck this in the mid to late game, and it's just bomb city. It ETBs and creates 2 2/2 green wolf creature tokens, okay, straight away, and is a 6/6. If you manage to cast this on your Nightbound when it's night, or you cast this and then you cast that, you know, I keep saying the same play pattern over and over again, but then you have Reckless Stormseeker in play already from before, and you make it nighttime. It either already is nighttime because your opponent wasn't able to make it switch, or you make it nighttime with that unnatural sunrise, or whatever it's called, moonrise, that other card that's in Golgari, in Gruul colors. You make it nighttime, then your Reckless Stormseeker gives Tovolar's Huntmaster's backside, which we're going to look at now, called Tovolar's Pack Leader, haste, and it's a 7/7 that when it attacks, creates another 2/2 green wolf creature tokens. And you can pay 4 and have another one of your creatures fight target creature you don't control. So it's also got a little fight spell built into it. Super house. It's unfortunate it doesn't have trample, but you can give it trample with the card I just mentioned earlier. You can give it trample. There's plenty of ways to give this trample. And then it's just a house. And it's not that expensive, 6 mana. If it's already nighttime, you cast it on the night side and you have Reckless Stormseeker in play. That means you're creating 2 2/2s as it comes into play, and then another 2/2s when it attacks. You're adding something like it's a 7/7 plus 4, 11, plus another 4 is 15 power to the battlefield in 1 turn. Insane. Next up, Smoldering Egg. This goes straight into that spell-casty burn red or potentially Prismari list that I was talking about so much during this recording. Smoldering Egg. It's a dragon egg, so relevant type as well. 2 mana for a 0/4, so it's a nice blocker in the early game. It has Defender, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you put a number of Ember counters on Smoldering Egg, equal to the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. If Smoldering Egg has 7 or more Ember counters on it, you remove them and so it's not about the damage that you do or whatever, it's about the mana that you spend to cast those spells. So it can be quite quick that you get it up to 7 Ember counters, and then it flips and becomes the Ashmouth Dragon. A 4/4 with flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 2 damage to any target. And there's another card that does 1 damage to every target for this whenever you do the same thing. So you can have like multiple things on the battlefield that ping the opponent whenever you cast a spell, and you just make, you choose all of your burn spells that can go straight to face, and there's not many of them right now, but there are a few. Igneous Inspiration's one of them. There's a few, and then the new X spell that I just was raving about a second ago, Light Up the Night, and you can just go for face with all your burn spells and have the 4/4 flying dragon and a few other. It's gonna be good. I'm really excited to try that deck as well. It's one of my first decks that I won a tournament with when I was really, really small. I had a really obnoxious just red burn deck with like the axe and bolt and shock, and it was just and it got me first place. Small little Friday Night Magic or whatever. I just was playing at my local gaming store, but I was only probably 13, 14 at the time, and I beat a much older guy, and it was one of my best days of Magic when I was a kid, for sure. I'll never forget it. Next up, another incredibly good card that was spoiled for the set, called the Meat Hook Massacre. The Meat Hook Massacre enters the battlefield. Each creature gets -X until end of turn. Unfortunately, it costs 2 black and X, and it is legendary, but it is an enchantment. It reads, when you first read it like that, as a sorcery or an instant sweeper, but it's actually an enchantment, so you can just cast it for 2. Nothing gets -nothing, but the static abilities remain on the battlefield, which is whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Whenever a creature an opponent control dies, you gain 1 life. So it's kind of like a better Bastion of Remembrance. That's unfortunately legendary, so you can't have more than 1 of them on the battlefield to stack the ability. But regardless, if you build up a board state of little pests, of zombies, of whatever, and your opponent has also built up a bit of a board of things, then you drop this on like turn 6, turn 7, you sweep the entire field, and you gain 1 life for each of the opponent's creatures that died. No, of yours that died, and they lose 1 life. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 1 life. Whenever a creature you control dies, okay. So yeah, you see what I mean. Bing, 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 bing. This would work good in so many decks. Sacrifice decks, Steal and Sack decks, Pest decks, Golgari Pest decks, Mono Black Pest deck. There's so many good homes for this card. I think it's going to be really, really good. Can't wait to play it. I'm just worried that, you're going to want it to do like a -4/-4 at the least, to really like go up against the aggro mono white, for example. At that point, the Luminarch aspirants and stuff have already grown to bigger than that, because you can only do -4/-4 on turn 6. So you'll probably need some like treasures to be able to do like a -4/-4 on like turn 5 or turn 4 if possible, with some treasure ramp and stuff, for it to be really good as a sweeper. But the enchantment is good in and of itself, which means you'll often probably be casting it on turn 2 for 2, and just using it for value with the other side of it. We're gonna make a deck with that today for sure, straight up. Day 1, like I have already a few ideas. I can't wait to show you. Next up, Malevolent Hermit. We're reaching the end. We're almost there. Malevolent Hermit is a 2-mana 2/1 human wizard, and you can pay 1, sacrifice it, and counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So it's like a counter spell on a body. You play it on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you just have this thing that's sitting there that can either block or attack. And then it's at any point you can, and you don't need, it doesn't require tapping, so it can be done even if if it has attacked. And then you can sacrifice it and counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3. And then it can be cast for its disturb cost of 3, and it comes back as a 2/2 flyer called Benevolent Geist, and non-creature spells you control can't be countered, which is pretty cool. I wonder, in some sort of like matchup with like a lot of counter magic, this would be really annoying to get through. Next up, Fateful Absence. People also like 50-50 about this card. It's still like half the people I've heard like are just raving about this and love it. The other half are just like, this is an absolute load of crap. Why would anybody play it? Destroy target creature or planeswalker for 2 mana at instant speed in white. So that's, of course, really good. Unfortunately, white always has this. Whenever they have removal, the opponent gets something for it. So its controller gets to investigate. So the opponent creates a creature, a clue token with that allows them to draw a card. So it's kind of like, and a lot of people have made this comparison already, Baleful Mastery with the student cost. Except when you pay 2 with Baleful Mastery, you're exiling. First of all, you're exiling. This is only destroy. They get to draw a card regardless. In this, they have to pay 2 to draw the card. So it's kind of better than a student-costed Baleful Mastery, but also kind of worse. But the most important thing is that you're gaining destroy target creature or planeswalker in a color that didn't have it for a while now. So pretty happy. Like in mono white, you're gonna get to destroy target creature or planeswalker with this, which is really, really cool. And also in like, you know, an Orzhov controlled deck, I could see myself playing this. Maybe some sort of Abzan deck, I wonder. It's easily splash 4-able. Alright, Ren and 7. We've already talked about this a lot on the streams, various streams and random points, but I think it's worth going over it again. I think this is going to see a lot of more play than people are thinking already. I mean, it's 5 mana Planeswalker that comes down and just starts doing a lot of powerful stuff. You can either +1 it to reveal the top 4 cards of your library and put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and all the rest into your graveyard. So already with all the graveyard shenanigans, it's like self-mill. I can see this going in the, you know, sort of like Golgari landfall deck. I've already got one planned with also 4 mana Nissa, Golgari Nissa, and Druid class. Keep your eyes peeled. That's going to be, I think, really explosive. But then you can also, now you've got all those lands in your hand, the following turn you just can 0 and put all those lands onto the battlefield tapped. Imagine the amount of landfall triggers you can get off of that. Then, or you can also just cast it for 5 and -3 straight away, which is probably what you're mostly going to be doing, because then you need to protect it. And it creates a treefold creature token with reach. And that creature token with reach will be a 5/5 because its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. And then it'll just keep on growing because you keep putting more lands onto the battlefield. And you can also do that thing with the Seeker's Chariot that I just mentioned earlier, where turn 5 you swing in with a Seeker's Chariot that's been crewed by the tree folk, and then you just copy the token and make another one. The next turn you play a land, you have like 2 6/6 tree folk creature tokens with reach on turn 6. That's insane. So yeah, and then the -8, if you ever do get there, it return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with you have no maximum hand size. You know, with a Vorinclex in play and you drop a Ren, it does have 5 loyalty straight away. So you can, it'll come in with 10 if you have Vorinclex. That means you can, you know, ultimate or get the emblem, and also it doesn't die. It'll still have 2 left, and you can start +1ing from there. Insane. Next up, Sunstreak Phoenix, 4 mana. So the Phoenix of the set. There's one almost every set. I prefer the Learn one, to be honest, but this one is to do with night and day. Made sense. It's a 4/2 with flying, and if it's neither night nor day, it becomes day as Sunstreak Phoenix enters the battlefield. And whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, you may pay 2, and if you do, you can return it from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it doesn't have haste, comes to the battlefield tapped. It's a 4/2, costs 4. It's just a worse Phoenix than most of the ones we've seen of late. It'll be interesting to see whether it sees any play. It has like, it can block a Goldspan Dragon. I think probably the Even Death Dracolich is just better. It's a 5/2 that is also recursable, and it has flash. At least then you can bring it back. I mean, you can bring this back on your opponent's turn as well. I think that's the whole point. You like it becomes a night or day during your opponent's turn, and he just killed it. Suddenly you bring it back for 2 tapped. You may pay 2, so whenever. So even if you can do that on your opponent's turn, and then you untap with a 4/2. It's okay. It's okay. It's not amazing. I prefer I don't know why it deserved this mythic badge there. Next up, Jaren the Corrupted Bishop. This is a sweet card. Okay, on the front side, it's a human cleric that's a 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield, or another non-token human you control dies, you lose 1 life, and you create a 1/1 white human creature token. Okay. Sorry, sweetie, I can't come with you now. I'm almost done reading this. Here, play with this. I can't come with you now. Go to mama. So, let me just see if I get this right. When it ETBs, you get a token. Okay. And whenever, so in some sort of like aristocrats, as they say, human deck, so yeah, whenever a non-token human you control dies, you lose 1 life and you create another human. So that's pretty cool. If you have like a bunch of little humans and then you sacrifice them, you lose 1 life for each one that you sacrifice, but you create a 1/1 to replace it, and then you can pay 2 and give any of your humans lifelink. The whole point of this is that you're losing life and gaining life, is that it's like Triska file, and that you need to get exactly 13 life for it to transform. So at the beginning of your end step, if you have exactly 13 life, you may pay 6, and if you do, you transform Jaren. Oh, Jaren, it's not Jerome, Jaren. And then on the backside it becomes Ormondal the Corruptor, a legendary creature demon that's a flying, trampling lifelink 6/6 that you can sacrifice another creature and draw a card. Okay, I mean that's at that point then you have like a bunch of these 1/1s, you sacrificing your own 1/1s, drawing cards, restock your hand, you have a 6/6 with lifelink, you attack in and you get back up from your 13 that you'd gotten down to. But I just don't understand, like, it's really expensive, this 6 mana. It should just transform. But anyway, it might be too busted then if it were. And I don't understand still, even before I started recording this, so many comments here. Even before I started recording this, I went and looked again at the video for the day and night time, and it doesn't quite explain, like, would this constantly be switching backwards and forwards, so then I have to pay 6 every turn to transform it, or does it just stay as Ormondal? Why does it have this day and night thing here, if it doesn't have daybound and nightbound? Once you've transformed it once, will always switch back and forth? Like, they didn't do a very good job of explaining that. Paying 6 mana on top of the gymnastics to get 13 life is kind of lame. Sweet card, but meh. Doesn't need to flip to be good. It's already a 3 mana 2 for 1 with bonus text. This is a flip card. I don't see myself. Doesn't really matter. First two abilities is solid. You could technically flip this in standard somewhere easily by comboing it with Maskwood Nexus. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's the first time sacrifice. See, like, I don't get it. No one's really talking about that. Like, why does it have this moon and sun symbol here? Anyway, next up, we have the Puppet Stitcher. I was talking about this card earlier. I was referring to this card earlier. In sort of a spells deck with zombies. This is going to be one of those cards that makes the zombie deck probably good. It's a bit slow, okay? Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. So that's constantly triggering your Champion of the Perished, okay? Then, whenever you at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more creature tokens, you may transform it. You may. So you don't, maybe you wait, you keep making tokens, keep making tokens. Suddenly, creature tokens you control lose all abilities and have base and power of toughness 3. So they lose Decayed. Suddenly they can attack, they can block, they can everything. They become normal creatures, not decayed creatures, and they grow to 3/3s. So you basically spend the whole game like growing your decayed tokens army, which also grows all your other zombies and stuff. And then at some point you flip the Puppet Stitcher and you swing in with a bunch of 3/3s that you don't lose. Or you swing in with some of them, you leave some back as blockers. Suddenly you can actually block with these things. Like, this is going to be the important card, I think, in the zombie deck. It'll just be interesting to see how good it actually ends up being. Lots of comments on that. I can see it being really fun when you get that to happen once every now and again, but I don't know if the deck in and of itself, like the zombie tribe, is actually going to be competitive and worthwhile playing. But we're going to try it today, so keep your eyes peeled on the channel for that. Next up we have Enduring Angel. 3/3 for 5 mana, 2 colorless and 3 white, so definitely going in a mono white deck. Flying double strike. You have hexproof, so you can no longer be cursed. You can no longer be, that deck light up the night. I think that's why they have this in here. Like, you can't go for face anymore, because it's not your creatures, it's not your planeswalkers, it's you have hexproof. So anything that says target player, the opponent can no longer do. They have to first get rid of this angel. And if your life total will be reduced to 0 or less, instead you transform Enduring Angel and your life total becomes 3. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. What? If your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel. How else could you transform it? Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. Well, let's see what the backside says. The backside is flying, you have hexproof, doesn't have the double strike. Angelic Enforcer's power and toughness are each equal to your life total. Don't understand this card. And then whenever it attacks, you double your life total. That's insane. But I don't understand. Okay, help me. How else are you supposed to transform this? Your life total goes to 0, and you have this in play. You play it on, against whatever. You're low on life. You play this guy. Your opponent still manages to get you to 0. Instead of going to 0, instead of dying, you transform this and you gain 3 life. And then you start attacking with the Angelic Enforcer and you double your life, so then it becomes 6. And does it stay the Angelic Enforcer, which is now a 6/6 because its power and toughness are each equal to your life total? I just don't get this part here, that if you didn't transform it this way, you lose the game. I'm going to have to play with it and see. But the other side is ridiculous. You double your life total every time you attack, and then its power is your life. That's crazy. If you can give this thing lifelink, booyakasha. That's a crazy card. We're going to have to play with that to figure out how to best play with it. A lot of good angels. Another one over here, which we'll get to in a moment. Next up, Consuming Blob, Ooze Tribal. It's getting bigger and bigger. The tribe is growing in standard. There's a lot of good oozes. We've got blue, green, and black. Sultai Ooze Tribal. Woohoo! I'm looking forward to giving that a try. This one is really good, and it's not legendary. 5-drop. Consuming Blob's power is equal to the number of cards types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number plus 1. At the beginning of your end step, create a green ooze creature token with this creature. So it just keeps making more and more of itself. So you need to put an instant, a sorcery, an enchantment, a creature, and a planeswalker, and a sorcery, or one of each of the card types into your graveyard. Suddenly this becomes a 5/6. Is that right? Instant sorceries, creatures. enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers. 6, a 6/7 that like just keeps multiplying at every end step. That's pretty ridiculous. I like that. I like that. I really like that. Cool. Consuming Blob. 5-drop in the Ooze tribal deck. And maybe somewhere else. We'll have to see. Next up, Moonveil Regent. This is a really interesting card, which I still haven't fully like wrapped my head around. I've seen a few builds already on Etherhub. It looks crazy. So again, in the spell casting deck, it'll probably end up being Jeskai to facilitate the Moonveil region, but even if it's just Prismari, it's good enough. Flying, 4/4 for 4, 3 colorless, 1 red. Whenever you cast a spell, you may discard your hand. If you do, you draw a card for each card of that spell's colors. So even if it's just discard 1, draw 1, and you keep casting it and then discarding nothing, whenever you cast a spell, you may discard your hand. If you do, you draw a card for each of that spell's colors. Okay. Interesting. So you cast a Prismari command. It's the last card in your hand, for example. So your hand's already empty. You cast Prismari command. You draw 2 cards because there's red and blue in that card's casting cost. And then you can keep casting and storming off. That's cool. And then when it dies, it deals X damage to any target where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. Cool. Pretty cool. That gets me thinking. I would have to spend a good solid day on this card just to like make a deck around it. It's not just simple one, but I feel like it's really powerful, and I'm just missing the the crux of it. I can't wait to figure it out. That looks really good. Next up, we have Lord of the Forsaken. A 6 mana. This is like a perfect reanimation target. Like this is going to be the type of thing that you're going to want to put into your graveyard with Ren and with everything in the set, and then reanimating it. And you get a 6/6 Frampler demon with flying and trample. Sacrifice another creature, target player mills 3 cards. Pay 1 life, add colorless. Spend this mana only to cast spells from your graveyard. This is going to be a house in some reanimated deck. I can't wait to play with this. Oh my goodness. You can bet your ass I'm going to give this thing haste and attack for 6 the moment I bring it back from the graveyard. Epic card. Next up, Lear, Disciple of the Drowned, or Liar. This one I'm also a little bit confused by. Like, what's the point? Where would you play it? What are you trying to do with this? But basically, it's a legendary creature, human wizard, for 5 mana, 3 colorless, 2 blue. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback, and the flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. Spells can't be counted. The shenanigans that this is gonna, like, wow, that's so much. Like, every card that's an instant or sorcery in your graveyard has flashback. So you give all your other cards that don't have flashback. And the flashback cost isn't more like it usually is, but it's the exact cost that it costs to cast them. That already is ridiculous as a static ability. And then your spells can't be counted. Okay, that does mean that theirs doesn't either, but you wouldn't be running any counter spells in a deck with this card. It would probably fit into that spells deck. Again, Prismari spells deck, like, with no counters. You just run burn spells. Burn spells and card draw. And this. Flashing them back. And then you're getting, the triggers off the Smoldering Egg. And oh my goodness, this is going to be crazy. I think that's actually better. Now that I've read it on camera, I realize that it's much better than I initially thought it was. Alright, so we've been recording for 1 hour and 40 minutes. This set review took so much longer than I thought. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Like, I was really planning on getting this done in one part, and it ended up being like 5 videos. But it sort of tied me over so that today the set comes out and I can just start making fresh content. And I'm finally, today, I'm in the situation where I can do that. The farm was just... It was really fun, and we had a great time, but it was horrible for the channel. Okay, next up, I think the last angel and the last mythic before we reach the adversary cycle. Sigardian Savior, 5 mana, 3 colorless, 2 white for an angel. That's a 3/3 with flying. On the baseline, that's kind of rubbish. Like, 5 mana for a 3/3 flying is not that good. But when it ETBs, if you cast it, return up to 2 target creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whoo! I've already got some ideas for this. I would probably be targeting, like, in a white weenies deck. This is your top end. You bring back 2 of your most important cards. You know, your Luminarch Aspirant and your Dawnbringer Cleric or something like that. Or in your Cleric deck, you're running a bunch of small Clerics, and then you're also running your Righteous Valkyrie. This comes into play. It's an angel, so it also triggers the Righteous Valkyrie, and then it brings back 2 other Clerics, which also trigger the Righteous Valkyrie. Suddenly you just brought, you know, you gained a bunch of life, and your board gets, you know, replenished again. There's going to be lots of play patterns with this that make it, you know, make me see why they made it mythic, even though it's a 3/3 with flying that costs 5 mana. The ability, and unfortunately, I mean, I don't think it deserved the mythic badge. It could have been a rare, because you can't blink this, you can't you know, reanimate it. It has to be cast for you to get that ETB trigger. So maybe you can bounce it back to your hand and cast it again the next turn. We've already got a card that bounces a little earlier. Where was it? Somewhere around here, where you return another creature to your hand. Can't find it now. But anyway, there was one. Bounce it to your hand, cast it again, keep bringing things back from the graveyard. We'll have to see. But it's a really nice art and a cool card nonetheless. Alright, we've done it. We've made it to the end. Hallelujah! Intrepid Adversary, Spectral Adversary, Tainted Adversary, Bloodthirsty Adversary, Primal Adversary. 1 adversary per color. Each one better than the next. These cards are insane. I think, personally, I like... I can't tell. I think Spectral Adversary is my least favorite. I really like the Bloodthirsty and Tainted Adversaries. But probably in actual terms of power level, Intrepid Adversary and Primal Adversary are probably... It's probably, if I had to rank them from 1 to 5, it'll be something like either Primal Adversary first or Intrepid Adversary first. So either 1 or 2 for those 2. And then Bloodthirsty Adversary 3, 4, and then... and then the Spectral Adversary 5. I think that's how I would rank them. So let me read them for you. Intrepid Adversary is a 2 mana 3/1 human scout, 1 and a white for a 3/1 with lifelink. They all have the same thing. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay. So you don't have to pay the cost ahead of time. So if it gets triggered, if it's on the stack and it gets counted, you don't lose the mana that you... Like, it's not like Kicker, where you have to dump the mana into it already. Once it ETBs, then another trigger will hit the stack, and then you can pay this. And you can pay it any number of times, and they all say the same thing, any number of times. And when you do this, something happens. In the case of the white one, when you pay this cost 1 or more times, you may put that many Valor counters on Intrepid Adversary. So, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each Valor counter on Intrepid Adversary. So that includes Intrepid Adversary itself. So if you cast it for 4, it comes into play as a 4/2, which gives all of your creatures +1/+1. The rest of the creatures that you have in play. If you cast it for 6, it comes into play as a 5/3, sorry, my goodness, and all your other creatures get +2/+2. 5/3 with lifelink for 6 that buffs, that anthems, all your other guys for 6. At some point in the late game, once you've already got a big board, that's ridiculous. Obviously, it's ridiculous. It's a really, really good card. Unfortunately, though, they can kill the Intrepid adversary, and you lose the Anthem effect. So you need to, I think the way this is going to work is that it's kind of okay on curve. You just get a 3/1 lifelinker that can trade with, the pack leader and other good 2 and 3 drops in the format. But when you do top deck it in the late game and you've got a nice board out of little weenies in your white weenies deck, then you just drop this thing for 6, and suddenly they all become, buffed by 2 power and toughness each, and you are left, after you swing in, with a very nice lifelink blocker. I think that's how you're going to want to play that card. Next up, we have Spectral Adversary, a spirit. See, so they kind of like the colors, the wolves are mostly green, the vampires are mostly red, the zombies are mostly in black, the spirits are mostly in blue, and the humans are mostly in white. But there's a bit of cross in, there's werewolves in red, and there's humans in black. So, but mostly that's where the tribes are going to be most powerful. Spectral Adversary is a 2/1 flyer with flash, costs 1 and a blue, flash and flying. When it ETBs, you pay 2, 1 colorless, 1 blue, and you can do it any number of times, like all the other adversaries. And when you pay this cost 1 or more times, you put that many +1/+1 counters on Spectral Adversary. Then, up to that many other artifacts, creatures. What? Okay. So you flash it in, you save all your creatures and stuff from a sweeper. But you don't save it. So you can just flash it in and save some stuff, but then you lose your Spectral Adversary. So I don't see why they have this. I guess it's more for, I have a feeling that you're going to want to not use it to save your squad from board wipe. It's going to be more like you're trying to get ETB triggers from your enchantments and artifacts and creatures. So comes in, pay the cost. Let's say you do it 3 times. You can bounce 3 of your good ETB cards. They phase out and they phase back in at your end step, and you get all those triggers. I don't know, and then you get left with a 5/4 flying. That's why it's my least favorite. I'm not a huge blue mage either. I usually use blue as like just counter spells and draw magic. I don't use blue creatures much at all, so we'll have to see. I'm definitely going to try it, but it's not my favorite. Next up, we have Tainted Adversary. 2-drop Death Touch Zombie. This is going to be so sweet in the zombie deck, okay? It's perfect on curve, and it's perfect in the late game. That's like the rule of a good card. Is it has to be good on curve and good in the late game. Death Touch, 2/3 on turn 2 is great. You can trade with anything, and it's a good blocker, and you can attack with it. It's great. But then if you pull this card in the late game and you pay the cost when it enters the battlefield any number of times, unfortunately this one's a little bit higher. It's 3, but if you can cast this for 5, then it comes into play as a 3/4 with Death Touch, and it creates 2 zombie tokens with Decayed to go on top of your Champion of the Perished and triggering all your zombie stuff. So if you then can cast it for 6, 7, 8, you're getting 4 zombie tokens, and it comes into play as a 4/5 with Death Touch. So you can see as the later the game goes, the better it gets. You're adding a lot of power to the battlefield, and you know, it's a good body in and of itself. So I really like Tainted Adversary. Next up, Bloodthirsty Adversary. This is the 2-drop that Mono Red has been looking for a long time. It's got haste, comes in on turn 2, swings in straight away, and does 2 damage. But if you get it in the late game and you pay 3 when it ETBs, you can put that many counters on it, first of all. So it comes into play as a 3/3. If you cast it for 5, it comes into play as a 4/4. 4/4 if you cast it for 8. But then, okay, you may exile that many. So okay, the number of times that you pay this. So you exile a card from your graveyard with mana value 3 or less and copy it. You may cast any number of the copies without paying the mana cost. I have already got a deck where I'm going to use that effect to very good way. And yeah, you'll see in the next stream. I'm going to do a little quick one before the set drops, where I just show a few decks that I've theory crafted before we actually start playing with the new cards. And then the stream tonight is going to be just opening packs, cracking packs, and making brews and playing games. I'm probably going to run like a 2 or 3 hour stream later on tonight as soon as the set drops. Just cracking packs, baby, and crafting the whole set. Next up, we have Primal Adversary, the last and probably one of the best cards in the set. Primal Adversary is a 3 mana 4/3 wolf creature with trample. So, you know, 4/3 with trample baseline is just for 3 is great in and of itself. But late game, you top deck it, you can cast this for 5. You get a 5/4 with trample that makes one of your lands into a 3/3 wolf with haste. So you need to have 6 mana open to do that play, because it doesn't untap the land. So if one of the lands that you turn into a 3/3 wolf token with haste was used to cast the Primal Adversary's extra cost there, then you can't swing in with it straight away. But if you've got 6 mana and you've already got a Reckless Stormseeker in play, you cast this for 5, you make a 5/4 with trample, you give it an extra +1 and haste with the Stormseeker, and suddenly you have 5, 6, 7, 8 additional hasty damage with trample going towards the opponent's way. So this is going to be crazy. And if it's a game ender, in something like a Simic ramp deck, you can get to that point where it's like turn 10 and you've got a bajillion mana and you cast this thing for whatever, like a load, and you just make like an insane amount of 3/3s with haste and swing in for the kill. Like, this is a really good card, and we will see where it ends up starting from tonight. Alright, we did it. I made it. It's the end of this video. Again, I hate apologizing so many times, but I really was supposed to do this in one take, and it ended up being 5, and that's just, the nature of my life right now, and it is the way it is. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my takes on some of these cards. I hope I gave you some fresh ideas. Those of you who, watched all the way through, there's certainly lots going on. I'm so freaking excited, and yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you all later in the, crack packing stream, I hope. And until then, this is Lone Fox from the BrewLab, signing out. Peace, y'all.